Good morning, friend. We have the entire house to ourselves today, so I thought because all my garden chores are taken care of, what we would do today is do a huge, massive baking day to prep breakfast. So I did a tiny little harvest out of the garden. We are gonna make mini quiches. We are gonna make French toast out of homemade bread that I made yesterday. And so what I should do is actually preheat the oven to 350, because we are gonna make two different kind of bagels, and we are gonna make blueberry English muffins on the stovetop. So I'm really excited just to have a fun day in the kitchen, hanging out with you and doing quite a bit of baking. We are going to take some of our homemade bagels and we're actually gonna turn them into bagel sandwiches. I have never done a big breakfast prep where I have made all the bread homemade. Normally when I make breakfast sandwiches or things like that, I use store-bought. But because I have the whole day, I thought it'd be fun to challenge myself and make homemade, because when we made those homemade bagels a while back, it's been a few months now, they were absolutely incredible. So the first recipe we're gonna start with is blueberry English muffins, because I have blueberries I just picked from my garden. In here, I'll link these recipes down below. I have 1 cup of water and 1 cup of milk. I'm gonna pop this in the microwave for about 30 seconds. This recipe calls for 1 1/4 ounce of yeast. So I just pulled my scale out. I'm gonna zero that out, put it on ounces, and we're gonna measure out our yeast. Now I just realized that for the past probably 6 months or so, I've been working with very inactive yeast. And so I went and got some new yeast, and let me tell you, my baking I want ounces. My baking has improved just by getting some new yeast. So I highly recommend check your yeast and see if it's alive. And if it's dead, go get yourself some new yeast. Seems like a lot of, oh, shoot. I was gonna say that does seem like a lot of yeast. It says 1.25 ounce packets. That's a little confusing. So we need 0.25 ounces of yeast. This won't go bad because we're doing so much baking today. I just got to get some of this out of here. Hey Siri, how many grams is 0.25 ounces? Okay, I'm going to do this in grams instead. We are off to a good start. So I've got now here the proper amount of yeast. That was just a little confusing how that was written. Okay, so I'm gonna set this here and let this just kind of hang out for a little bit while we go ahead and we measure out our dry ingredients into our mixer. This is my favorite mixer for making any kind of dough. And we're gonna make a double batch of the bagels, and I'm gonna do that in here, and I can do that pretty easily in this mixer. To our yeast and milk, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of sugar. Stir that. And to my mixer, I'm gonna add 7 cups of all-purpose flour. 4, 5, 6. Gonna add some salt. I'm gonna mix this together. And I'm gonna add the prized possessions, which are 2 cups of blueberries. These are homegrown blueberries. And there's 1. And 2. Now this recipe does not call for this, but when we made blueberry bagels together, the blueberry bagel recipe called for these dried wild blueberries, and they were so good. So I'm gonna add probably, let's see, about 3/4 of a cup of those in there, because what's gonna happen is the blueberries that are fresh are gonna end up getting crushed and stain and make the beautiful dough purple. But then these are gonna stay whole and add a really good chew and sweetness to it. And so I'm adding those in here as well. Just gonna give that a quick mix. Now that my yeast, milk, water mixture is foamy, we're gonna add that, along with a 1/4 cup of melted butter. This dough originally was looking very dry, and then now that the berries are starting to crush open, it's starting to look a little bit wet. So I'm just gonna let this knead in here for probably a good 10 minutes, and then we are going to reassess what it looks like at that point. While our dough is kneading, I'm gonna go ahead and make the custard up for our French toast. So this bread turned out so beautiful, and I couldn't figure out why my sandwich bread loaves were not rising properly. And then I did a test on my yeast, and I'm pretty sure it was dead, and that's why they were rising, but not to this level. So this is beautiful. So I make homemade French toast and prep it and put it in the freezer all the time, but I've never done it with homemade bread. And so yesterday I was making sandwich bread just for us to eat for sandwiches, and I figured I would double that recipe so that we could go ahead and make French toast out of it. It's one of my favorite things to have prepped in the freezer, besides, I guess we love breakfast burritos and breakfast sandwiches, because it is so easy and I don't have to make a mess on my stove on mornings. We want French toast when I have it prepped. This looks beautiful. Look at the color on this dough. And you can see these are the dried blueberries, and then there's no whole blueberries in there anymore. This has been kneading for quite some time. I think that's probably good. I wanted to get the two doughs rising first thing because I knew that we could be doing other things like actually cooking our French toast while this dough is rising. So I have two stainless steel bowls here because one is going to be for this recipe and the next one is going to be for the bagel recipe. And it already smells really good in here. So I'm just gonna get a little oil in the bottom of this bowl and kind of wipe it around the bowl. Get this out of here. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be so delicious. So delicious. I probably should have done the bagel recipe first because there's gonna be a little bit of blueberry remnants in here. I'll try to get all this dough out. And I guess if there's a tiny bit, that's okay. It won't hurt anything. This is my idea of a good day, a fun day. To spend the day having fun, making fun recipes, filling my family's pantry and freezer with delicious, yummy things. I just really enjoy it, and I'm excited to kind of push myself and try to make all the bread products myself. Okay, so there is our beautiful blueberry dough. I'm just gonna set this here for just a second. I'm gonna cover that in just a second, but I wanna actually get going on our bagel dough recipe. Let me go wash my hands real quick, and we'll be right back. And I'll get some warm water because we need water for the bagel dough. I need 3 cups of water. I'm gonna double this recipe so that we can get 16 breakfast sandwiches out of this recipe, because those will go very quickly in my household. So to this, I'm gonna add our yeast, and I'm gonna use that yeast that I started using earlier. Along with 4 tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm gonna mix that. And we're gonna let that sit for a few minutes. Now that our yeast is nice and bubbly, I can go ahead and add our flour. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and weigh the flour out on this one because this recipe gives me weights. When I can weigh things out, I like to. Do I always know? But I am starting to weigh things out more and more, and it does help have more accurate measurements. So we need, for a double recipe, that blueberry English muffin recipe was not a double recipe. It just had a lot of ingredients. I'm gonna use bread flour for this recipe. This is actually some really cool bread flour that I got from a local grocery store in Portland. I was going to dinner with a friend down there, and I got there about 20 minutes early because you never know what parking's gonna be like in Portland. And I found this really cool grocery store that tries to source as much local as possible. It's just this tiny little mom and pop grocery store, but it is beautiful, and I should take you there sometime. But anyway, they had this whole entire section of flowers where the flowers were from local farms. And so this bread flour is from a local farm, and so I bought it, and I'm really excited to use it. This is the first time I'm using it. So bread flour has more protein in it, so it's gonna give you that signature chew that you want out of a bagel. So now that I've got now that I have my flour in here, I'm gonna add my salt. This is a half teaspoon, that's why I added 4 of those. And I think that that's everything we need. Yep. Actually, we need 2 more of these salts. Bagels are pretty simple ingredients. There's no oil or butter or anything in here at all. So I'm gonna get this kneading, and this is gonna knead for about 10 minutes too. While this is kneading, I'm gonna come over here and get my stove top heating up. And we are gonna use my carbon steel Made-In griddle pan. And this is the perfect time to thank Made-In for sponsoring today's video. I love this griddle pan. It is naturally non-stick. When I do big projects like this, where I make big batches of French toast or tons of eggs for sandwiches like we're gonna do in a little bit, I used to use my roaster pan because that was a pan that was big enough to fit on 2 burners, and it was made with Teflon, and I finally just went ahead and donated that yesterday because I do want to try to get away from Teflon, and this is carbon steel, which is a natural non-stick. And I am gonna put a little bit of butter on here because butter makes everything better, and that's how I like to make my French toast. And so the cool thing about this carbon steel griddle is it does go on 2 burners, so I can get a lot done. These griddle pans are made in Sweden. Made-In likes to partner with multi-generational factories and artisans to create a high quality cookware. Made-In's products are in Michelin star restaurants around the world. Their goal is to bring home cooks professional grade cookware, which I think is fantastic. I am a big fan of high quality cookware. That's typically what Josh gets me for Christmas and my birthday. And so this, if you're thinking of a gift for someone, would be a perfect gift for them. So what we've got here is our bread that is sliced. I'm gonna dip it into our egg mixture. And if you are looking for this griddle pan or any of their other high quality products, I've been using their products in my kitchen now for about 6 months, and I will not go back. They will be the first link down in the description box, and there is a special discount for people who are purchasing from them for the first time. Another really cool thing about these carbon steel griddles is that it can go up to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can actually cook with this on an open flame. You can put it onto your grill to create a black top on your grill if you just have a gas grill like I do. And you can use these on not just a gas cook stove, but you can use them on an electric and an induction cook stove as well. Last time I used this with you all, you asked me why I wasn't using this middle burner, because that's kind of what it's designed for. And it's because that burner wasn't working until about a week ago. Josh finally cleaned it. I think there was stuff that was stuck in it that wasn't making the propane come out through it evenly. And why I'm not using it right now is because I know that I would make a big mess getting this French toast from my counter to the center of my stove. So to kind of reduce the mess, I'm just using these 2 burners here. And these smell incredible. And so I'm gonna go ahead and get these off. They are perfectly done. And look at that, no sticking. Now, if you don't have a few hours to set aside to do a big meal prep like I am doing on this day, but you still want to get some meal prep done for your family, when you are making breakfast, say you're making French toast on a Saturday morning, instead of making just what you need for that day, consider doubling it, because you already have the griddle pan out, you've got your eggs and the milk, and the stove is going to get a little bit messy. Go ahead and double what you're making and then pop the other half in the freezer that you don't end up eating that day. I do that all the time when I don't have meal prep and I know that I'm not going to be able to set aside time to dedicate to meal prep. I will slowly build that meal prep. I love to cook. It's one of my favorite ways to show the people I love how I love them. is through food and homemade food. It brings me joy. And so I know that realistically though, most mornings I'm not going to be making French toast, but by meal prepping it, we can have French toast whenever we want. I rely on my meal prep a lot for not just times I don't want to cook, but sometimes I don't want to mess up the kitchen. Sometimes I don't have time to cook. Sometimes, we're running out the door to go to the pool or the zoo or whatever it might be, and making homemade French toast is not going to happen, but I can pull these out, warm them up, and we can enjoy them, and I can just rely on my previous self's efforts for a delicious breakfast. It's a little hard to tell probably, but this is the flour that I bought, and it was produced in Washington State. It's a hard red spring wheat, a high protein content, 15.7. And I'm gonna put this white bag next to it. You can see how this dough has a little bit of brown to it. So this I think is gonna have a lot of flavor, even though it's currently just well, I guess there was a little bit of brown sugar in it, so that could be coloring it too. But I think it also has to do with this flour that I bought. I'm just about to flip the last few pieces of French toast. And we already now, after this cooks for a minute or two, have one project completely done and 2 others started. I was thinking I might make one more bagel recipe, but I don't have enough blueberries picked. I would need to go pick 2 cups of blueberries. Maybe I'll do that. This is what I'm doing today. So why not add another recipe to the list? That dough that I have there needs to rise for at least an hour. We still need to get the quiche in the oven. Maybe I should make the quiche first. I do need to cover though this bowl of dough. Our dough is covered, so we'll let that just sit there. Oh, I have one more piece of bread in my egg mixture here. I thought this was the last. I could have cooked it on this batch. I need to get another cooling rack out. I actually think I'm gonna hold off on making the blueberry bagels because I wanna use most of those blueberries that I have out there for fresh eating. So I'm not gonna go pick any. We'll pick them for dessert tonight. That's what we like to do. So here is 2 loaves of bread made into French toast. Fantastic, 1 piece broke, so I'll probably end up just eating this piece. Fantastic. So good. Normally I would also put vanilla in my custard, but I am out of vanilla, if you can believe that. And I am out of pepper. And did I go to the grocery store to grab a couple things for today? I did, and I forgot both of those staples. So there's no vanilla in this. It still tastes really, really good. We will serve this with jam, maple syrup, butter, apple butter, whatever we decide to serve it with that day, fresh blueberries that we just pick. And so we won't even notice that there's no blueberries in it. So what I'm gonna do now is actually, because I'm waiting for those dough to rise, let's go ahead, and I on accident turned my oven off earlier. Let's go ahead and get this preheated, and we will make our quiche, which I already have a crust done. Last time we had a dinner party, I made pie and I made an extra pie crust. So I just threw this in the refrigerator from the freezer and it's now thawed, so we can go ahead and turn this into quiche. So before I'm going to make these little quiches, I'm gonna go ahead and just clean up a little bit, wipe my mixer down. I've actually never made personal quiches before. I have made full-size quiches many, many times, but I thought it'd be fun to make little personal ones. One thing I love about quiche is you can use whatever you have on hand, and I happen to have a zucchini from the garden and some tomatoes from the garden. We've been eating the tomatoes about as quickly as they come out of the garden. I'm only getting cherry tomatoes so far. I haven't got any slicing tomatoes. I have a bunch of green slicing tomatoes out there, but nothing's ripened up yet. Okay, counter's clean. I am going to go ahead and roll though my pastry out on a silt mat. And the reason I do this is because I have tile countertops. I get a question a lot, what kind of countertops do I have? This over here is quartz, and over here it's granite tiles, because you see me put hot stuff on my countertops all the time. And you can put hot on granite. I don't know if you're technically supposed to put hot on quartz, probably not, but I do. All right, so now I need to get my rolling pin out. I want to use my favorite one. This was my grandma's rolling pin, my dad's mom's rolling pin. And I'm not sure how I ended up with it, but I did, and I'm happy about it. I'm gonna make these quiches in muffin tin. Not mini muffin tins, just like a regular size muffin tin. I guess I could do mini ones. Should I do mini ones? No, I think I'm gonna do personal size. That's what I'll call these, personal size. This dough is pretty cold, so it might take a little bit of effort to roll it out, but that's okay. I will link this pie recipe down below. It's an all butter pie recipe, or pie crust, and it is so good. I have found a trick to work with pie pastry is to keep it moving so that it doesn't stick. I like to flip it over, pinch the ends together, keep rolling. So I don't know how many personal quiches I'm gonna get out of this one pie dough. So I'm not gonna make the filling till I see how many I can fill. Thinking I'm gonna take a cutter, cut out a circle. So I'm gonna pop this in the fridge because I've been working with this dough for a while and I want that butter to cool down again. While my pastry is chilling in the fridge, I think it's time to go ahead and actually roll out these English muffins. These are gonna need to do a second rise. So I think I can just go ahead and, while I've got this all out and messy, I'm gonna go ahead and just roll this out so that it can do its second rise. Look at that, look how beautiful that is. It smells really good. It smells like blueberries, which is what you want. I got out another biscuit cutter. This is actually a little bit smaller than the last one we used. Last time I made English muffins, I thought I made them a little too thin, so this time I'm gonna make them a little bit thicker. And what I have found that works really well when making English muffins is to start them on the stove, because traditionally English muffins are cooked on the stove, but have the oven preheated, which is perfect because I have it already preheated, so that you can finish them in the oven if you need to, if you can't get them fully cooked on the inside on the stove. So let's see here. This feels so beautiful and soft. So I just put cornmeal down on this cookie sheet. And I'm gonna get my English muffins on here. trying to think, maybe I should do the larger one. I have my window open because it's the perfect day outside right now. And the birds are chirping and it's really, really nice. And I think I'm just gonna go just a touch thinner. Just a touch. Yeah, I like that. So this is what the English muffins are looking like. Now what I think I'm gonna do while I'm at it is I'm gonna go ahead and shape these bagels. And we need to get 16 bagels out of this one thing of dough. And I can just do that right here on this silk mat. Two, 4, 6, 8. I decided I wanted only 12 bagels. I wanted the bagels to be a little bit larger. And to figure out a way to do this after already shaping a bunch of them, I pulled out my scale, I weighed the whole amount of dough, and then I divided it by 12, and it's approximately 149, give or take a couple grams. So now I have 12 balls of dough. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna shape them just like I did, and then we'll let them rise. There we go. A little bit bigger for a sandwich. All of my yeast bagels and English muffins are now rising. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get a pot of water on to boil. I need to get a big pot, and it, I think, is in my pantry. And this is going to be to boil the bagels. And this is gonna take a while to come up to a boil, so I figured what I'll do is have this come up to a boil while we make the filling for our little quiches. I've got a few tomatoes for, oh, gotta wash that. I have a few cherry tomatoes from the garden and one little zucchini. I've already washed them once, but I'm gonna wash them one more time. I sliced the tomatoes into little slices because I'm gonna top each little quiche with a slice. I'm going to shred this zucchini and I'll squeeze out any extra moisture. Okay, I'm gonna go squeeze out any extra moisture out of this zucchini. I think I'm only gonna add 2, 4, 5 eggs. Add a little garlic powder, little salt, just a splash of milk, not too much. And then I have a combination of 3 different cheeses that I have pre-shredded, and I'm just gonna use that because that's what I have. 2 kind of half handful sizes. This is probably enough to fill each one of our mini quiches. I am so excited about these. So I decided to preheat the oven to 400, and I'm gonna cook these at 400 for probably about 15 to 20 minutes. So my water is boiling. I think what I'm gonna do is go ahead and turn this off, and I'm going to, let's see. I was thinking I could probably boil bagels and cook English muffins at the same time, but that is probably wishful thinking. So what should I do? Should I boil? Yes, I'm gonna boil bagels first because these then can bake in the oven while I cook the English muffins. So I need to boil these bagels for 2 minutes on each side, I think, or 1 minute. I need to relook at the directions. But I need to finish baking them at 425 in the oven. Let's get this back turned on. And I actually need to put about 1/4 cup of honey in my water. And that's gonna help give it that distinct look and chew. That's what the boiling process does. Yeah, I wanna actually get these bagels cooking first because we're gonna turn them into breakfast sandwiches and they need to cool before I can cut into them. It's probably good there. I'm gonna put a little bit of cornmeal on this griddle. Now, one thing I did not take into account is my bagels are over there, not on a cookie sheet. So I'm gonna have to bring them over here one at a time. I'm just rereading my recipe. Drop bagels in 2 to 4 at a time, making sure there's enough room for them to float around, and boil 1 minute on each side. I should have also sprayed my bagels before putting the plastic wrap on because it is sticking. I meant to grab some from downstairs because I'm out up here and I forgot. So I'm just gonna have to carefully shoot. Oh well, it's okay. So these just might not have the prettiest tops on a couple of them, but they'll be fine. So what I'm gonna do is just carefully put a bagel in the boiling water. I think I'll be able to get 3 in here at a time, maybe 4. No, I'll start with 3. I'm gonna set my timer for 1 minute. And you know, I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna start trying to cook some on here. And again, I, on accident, turn my oven off, shoot. You know, I'm gonna turn this one to 350 for the English muffins, and the one that was just at 400 for the quiches, which turned out beautiful, I'm gonna put at 425 for the bagels. These are what the English muffins are looking like. Woo. They look nicely proofed, so I'm happy with those. I like that I made these a little bit thicker this time instead of thinner. I think I need to put a little bit of oil on my hands to pick these bagels up so I don't flatten them completely. So these are the last bagels, and I can tell because I made these so much thicker, they're not cooked in the inside and I'm getting coloring. So I'm gonna start taking these off the griddle. Oop, so we got a nice top on them. And I'm gonna go ahead and put more on. This is where I've got a little bit of a dance going on, but this is the last bagels coming out. So I can get these out of here, and then I can just focus my attention on the English muffins, because we can pop these. I'm gonna turn this off, put that on just so it's not steaming in here. Flip these. I wish you could smell it in here. It has a wonderful light blueberry smell. Get a couple more on here. Okay, let's go ahead and get an egg wash on these and get these flavored. So I just ran and flipped all of my English muffins. I've got to keep a close eye on that. I'm gonna get some everything but the bagel seasoning on here. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be so good. I'm glad that I'm getting more comfortable making bagels. Hopefully they puff up in the oven and they will be delicious because they are so good. I'm trying to think, should I leave? I think I'm gonna season all of them. Josh likes everything with the bagel seasoning, and I'm turning all of these into sandwiches, so I don't need any plain for like jam or anything like that. And I'm putting a very healthy dose of everything bagel seasoning. There is a little bit of salt in this seasoning, and it adds just a wonderful crunch and flavor. Okay, so I'm gonna get these into the oven, and then we've got to get those English muffins into the oven too. Got a little bit of a dance going on. I don't want that oven open any longer than it needs to be. I'll rotate these in 10 minutes. I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes. So I need to get some eggs cooked up for our breakfast sandwiches. So I'm gonna go just dump this off, wipe it off, and then we can make eggs in this. I need 12 eggs fried. I just got this butter out of the fridge, so it's still really hard. We're gonna get some butter on here for flavor. The timer just went off for the bagels, so I just rotated those. So now I'm kind of just waiting for things to cook. I've got my eggs cooking, and I'm waiting for things just to be ready to come out of the oven. So I figured I might as well go ahead and just do some tidying. I think these eggs are ready to come off. So if you want to know a trick, if you're not sure if your bread is done or not, you want it to be at least 195 to 200 degrees. So I am at 185 on my English muffins that I first put in, and my kind of second round of English muffins, I'm at 206. So I'm gonna give them another like 3 minutes just to make sure they're fully cooked, and then the English muffins can come out of the oven and cool. So now I'm gonna cook up some breakfast sausage to add to our sandwiches now that we've got the eggs and our bagels are almost ready to come out of the oven. So I need to turn these into patties. So I'm just gonna take a plate and I'm just gonna shape these into sausage patties. Let's see, I need 12. I have another pound that's thawed. So the last component for our breakfast sandwiches, I'm gonna make some honey mustard. So all I'm gonna do is equal parts honey to equal parts mustard. This is actually some homemade Dijon mustard that is so good. And I'm gonna make a little extra more than I need because I will just put this in my fridge and we can use this for other sandwiches. These are absolutely beautiful, but they are a little flatter than when I make bagels the last couple times. And I think it's because I did overproof these a little bit. So they flattened out a little bit. They feel fantastic. They're gonna taste delicious. They're just not quite as puffy. And I think that's because I'm not used to working with completely active yeast. I'm used to my bread taking forever to rise because it's not very active. And so what we're gonna do now with these a little bit flatter bagels, but really delicious bagels, is we're gonna turn these into breakfast sandwiches. Oh yeah, they've got a good texture to them. They're gonna be nice and chewy, which is what we like out of a bagel. They've got good feel. They're cooked beautifully. So I'm just going to go through, open each one of these up. Oh yeah, they're gonna be super chewy and yummy. It's one reason why I put extra everything but the bagel, because I knew that some of it was gonna fall off during this process. I'm gonna take some of my honey mustard. If you've never had honey mustard on a breakfast sandwich and you like honey mustard, I highly recommend it. There was this little bakery on the Oregon coast we used to go to, and they made homemade English muffins and they made breakfast sandwiches out of those homemade English muffins. And they would put honey mustard on their breakfast sandwich. It was the first time Josh and I had ever had it, and it was incredible. So now I always put honey mustard on breakfast sandwiches when I make them. So now each one of these bagels is gonna get a sausage patty. I could have made these sausage patties a little bit bigger, but that's okay. And now I'm gonna top them. These are gonna be so good. So I'm gonna keep a couple of these in my refrigerator. And then what I'll do is, if I know we wanna have these the next day, what I have found that helps to have the best texture when it comes to reheating, it does help to thaw them out the night before. So what I do is they usually thaw within 12 hours. So if I put them in the refrigerator the day before, they are absolutely delicious. You can reheat them from frozen, but sometimes it takes a little bit more time for that to happen. So I do tend to try to remember to take them out of the freezer. Okay, so there's 6. I am so glad to have these on hand. Now I'm gonna make the other 6. These ones are a little flatter, but they're gonna be just as good. And once I finish this project, I want to taste one of those English muffins. They have cooled down now. Oh, I wanna note, these bagels are completely cool. You don't wanna cut into your bread until it cools off completely, because it actually finishes the cooking process while it's cooling. If you cut into bread, as tempting as it is, when it's still hot, the first couple pieces you have will be good, but then it releases the steam, and sometimes the bread can be kind of gummy. So I did let these cool completely before I am assembling them. And I wanted to let my English muffins cool. Then I'm gonna toast them in the air fryer, and we are gonna give those blueberry English muffins a try. I already know these are gonna be delicious because I've made this recipe before. And I'm totally fine that these bagels don't have little holes in them. It's actually better because then the cheese isn't gonna kind of ooze out. This is provolone. You can use whatever kind of cheese you want. You could use bacon instead. You could use a vegetarian sausage if you wanted, and skip the egg if you wanted to make these sandwiches a vegetarian sandwich. If I have these ready to go still in my freezer when the tomatoes come out of the garden, I will definitely be slicing a big, beautiful piece of tomato to put on these. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get these packaged up. I've got our mini quiches, which I cannot be more thrilled with how these turned out. I will probably throw these in the air fryer to rewarm them so that the crust gets nice and crunchy and crispy again. So I'm gonna wrap these with one piece of plastic wrap first. These will get eaten so quickly. I don't even think I'm gonna put them in another bag because I can guarantee you these are gonna go quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and open these up, and I wanna get these in the air fryer and toasted. So the proper way to open an English muffin is to take a fork and poke around the middle. Look at that. All right, I just got the dishwasher started. I'm gonna taste one of these blueberry English muffins to see if it was worth the effort. Absolutely, most definitely worth the effort. I would say, if you're gonna make those though, put in the dehydrated wild blueberries because that extra pop of sweetness and chew is fantastic. I almost think that these would make a really good breakfast sandwich too. Kind of that sweet and savory. I might actually end up turning some of these into breakfast sandwiches once we go through these. These will be gone in no time. These are fantastic, so good. Haven't tried these yet. I'm sure they're gonna be great. I'll pop these in the air fryer. This, so good, easy, just a great thing to have, yummy. I got a total of 12 breakfast sandwiches from the bagels, 24 blueberry English muffins, 2 loaves of French toast done, and 12 personal size quiches, which is fantastic. And this is the first time that I have made all of the bread products myself. So making the bagels, making the pie crust, making the bread to make the French toast, which is fun. I enjoy doing this. And so if you want to try any of these recipes, I will link them down for you down below. I hope you give them a try. I love having time in the kitchen, and today I had nothing to do but spend time in the kitchen with you, and it was a great way to spend the day and fill my freezer with some delicious, convenient breakfast items. So thank you for being here. If you want to see more meal prep videos, I'll pop them there. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.